Teferi is back, baby. It's out. Alright, let's take a look. Anything good? Standard. Epiphany banned. Divide by Zero banned. Haven banned. Legacy. Ragavan banned. Historic. Memory Lapse banned from Suspended. Teferi Time Raveler has been rebalanced and unbanned. To what? That's the old TEF, and that is a link to an article explaining the rebalance and unbalancing process. Okay, standard. Epiphany, Divide by Zero, Haven. I mean, Divide by Zero didn't need to get banned, but whatever, it's fine. I haven't played standard in actual months. I can't remember what any of the decks are. I remember Mono White and Epiphany. What are the other decks? Guys, Divide by Zero it's actually a bad card. This has to be the worst card that's ever been banned. It has to be. It's not completely unplayable. I mean, Divide by Zero is fine, but it's got to be the worst card that's ever been banned. It is very unfun though. If it's been banned because it's unfun, I accept it. In the October 2021 banned and restricted update, we announced no changes to standard in anticipation of Crimson Vow's release. Since then, we've heard community feedback that there hasn't been enough change in the metagame over time. While a good number of decks are seeing success on the MTG Arena ladders, and each has strengths and weaknesses against the others, the most played archetypes have remained largely the same over the past months. Okay, all true, all true. As such, we have a set of changes targeted at some of the top decks, including Epiphany and other control decks, Mono White aggro, Mono Green aggro. So what are the other standard decks? I mean, I have literally forgotten. Our goal is to create some churn among the current top decks, open up additional angles from which to attack the metagame, and leave room for some experimentation and innovation with the release of Kamigawa. Epiphany is a card we highlighted in the October announcement as having potential for negative impact on metagame diversity. While blue decks with powerful late game spells can sometimes do good work as natural predators of mid-range decks, a deck that chains together extra turns can be particularly difficult to stop and frustrating to play against when it represents too large a portion of the metagame. The foretellability of Epiphany makes it even harder to interact with, as one of the traditional answers to big spells is hand disruption. Yep, that's fair. While not entirely dominant throughout the arena ladders, especially in Best of One, Epiphany decks have been particularly popular and successful at the highest level of competition and in tournament play. To create space in the metagame for more mid-speed and slow archetypes, and to address the often frustrating play pattern of chaining extra turns, Epiphany is banned in standard. Chat, Wizards are basically saying the Best of One Andes are shit. Nobody can win with Epiphany in Best of One, but the good players win with it all the time. That's basically what they're saying. And I mean, it's true. Even without access to Epiphany, our data gives us concern that other blue control decks are poised to reduce metagame diversity by shutting out certain types of strategies. In particular, Divide by Zero gives those decks flexible, early interaction that is especially effective against slower, more powerful spells and permanents. It's not good. Divide by Zero is fucking terrible. Do you know what's good though? Casting all of your spells twice. That's pretty good. That would make even the most medium spells seem very good. The ability of Divide by Zero to cover a variety of angles of attack frequently gives these decks enough time to enact and protect a powerful endgame soft lock state, often using Liar or Hullbreaker Horror. Therefore, we're choosing to ban Divide by Zero to make blue control decks less effective against other mid-speed and slow decks and force them to be more intentional about which threats they choose to prepare for. Okay, I mean, I can generally accept this. I am a little bit triggered that Liar's not banned. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to say here? Liar could go. The most winning decks on the MTG Arena ladder and among the most popular have been Mono White and Mono Green. While each owes part of its success to preying upon Blue-Red Epiphany, both decks also have high win rates against the field, especially against many of the less popular decks on the fringes. Haven represents a lot of the power of these monocolour decks by virtue of being efficient on its own and by providing resilience against creature sweepers and targeted removal. To weaken these two aggressive archetypes without fundamentally changing their core game plan, Haven is banned. Haven ban? I've got to say I'm a bit surprised by that, but seems fine. Blue decks in Historic continue to remain strong, so Memory Lapse is officially moving from the suspended list to banned. Yep. Additionally, we have Rebalanced Tef into a form we believe is safe for Historic, and it will be removed from the banned list, man. Tef a boy. Alright, so here we go. This is what I'm looking for here. Alchemy rebalancing for January 27th, 2022. Since Alchemy's launch, we've been happy with the overall deck diversity in the format, true. Our intent with this round of changes is to better balance the play rates between the top decks while ensuring they all remain viable. We also hope that the minor adjustments to some of the top decks alongside buffs to other cards will allow more decks to compete at the highest level of play. Good, so we're actually getting some buffs, that's good to know. After closely monitoring our first round of Alchemy rebalances, we're happy to report that they had minimal impact on historic win rates among existing decks, but we also understand players' concerns over future unknowns. Based on that feedback, we will be weighing the potential historic impact more heavily in our rebalance decisions, starting with the adjustments we're announcing today. As with all balance and card pool changes, we will be carefully watching the way the metagame evolves as a result. If we see signs in Alchemy or Historic that these changes have had an unintended impact, we will move to correct that. If we see that these changes have not done enough, we will correct that as well, and continue doing so as often as necessary. As we've stated before, our goal for Alchemy and Alchemy rebalances is to keep the format interesting and engaging every time players sit down to play. That's all good news, because when Alchemy got originally announced, it was said that the buffs and nerfs were going to happen around about once a month. Now obviously it was never going to happen on the second day of every single month, but around about once a month gives people, like a month is enough time to find out what the meta is and then get a couple of weeks out of playing whatever you think is the best deck, and then we go again, right? So that's fine. It seems fine. And it looks like they're going to actually stick to that, which is good. In addition to the 18 rebalanced cards, 18! Okay, that's pretty cool. We rebalanced the Fairy Time Raveler, and the updated Alchemy version will be legal in Historic play. In the future, we'll be looking for similar opportunities to rebalance and unban cards currently on the Historic banned list, with the understanding that we have no intention of rebalancing iconic cards with significant Magic history. And before you ask, you get to keep your wild cards from the original banning. Fair? All is fair so far. The two primary goals with this set of changes are to make decks centered around the Venture keyword action less clunky and more reliable at winning games. Venture is being pushed. For example, too many Venture cards were clustered at 3 mana, and we hope that decreasing the mana value of various cards will open up more options to build around cards like Acererak, Nadar, and Varus. Similarly, by making Triumphant Adventurer hit harder, turning Cloister Gargoyle into a 2-mana threat, letting Eliwick Tumblestrom ultimate 1 turn quicker, and having Acererak always create a zombie token, we are aiming for decks built around Venture to win more consistently after completing 1 dungeon. Okay. Buffs. Acererak removed opponent's option to sacrifice a creature on the attack trigger. What? What does that mean? I don't know what it did before, man. Okay, that still seems terrible. Assemble from parts. Lowered the overall cost. Now requires 2 black mana. Wow, this thing is like insane. So it used to be 1 mana to cast it, and it was 3 and a black to reanimate. It's a 3 mana reanimate spell. 3 mana, dude. It's hard to actually use it on turn 3 though, because you have to get a creature into your graveyard first, right? Which means to be able to do this to be able to reanimate on turn 3, you need to be able to get a creature into the graveyard for 1 mana. Because you've got either 1 mana on turn 1 to do it, or you've got 1 mana on turn 2 because you also need to cast this too. Well, Mending doesn't work, right? Mending doesn't let you reanimate on turn 4, because when do you cast the Assemble from parts? It needs to be 1 mana, get a creature into the graveyard, if you want to reanimate on turn 3 anyway. So you'll be able to do this, so you'll be able to do turn 3 reanimate in Historic, but I don't think you can do it in Alchemy. The only way to do it in Alchemy would be to use a discard spell on yourself, right? But it does make it a lot easier to get a creature on turn 4 though. We felt the dream of reanimating a creature on turn 4 with Assemble from parts was too difficult to achieve. Changing the ability's mana cost will make a turn 4 reanimation much more consistent, but will require a heavier commitment to black to support the adjusted cost. That's fair. Blood Rage Alpha is a 4/4 now. I still don't see this, man. I've tried this alpha. He sucks. He needs a lot more than 1 toughness. As cards with a high deck building cost, we felt this card alongside Puppet Razor should be more resilient to make them more competitive when compared to some of the more universal 4-mana options. Puppet Razor buff? Dude, Puppet Razor was already like kinda sick. Okay. Cloister Gargoyle is now 2 mana. Lowered cost, increased toughness. You didn't increase the toughness. You're a liar, Wizards. You decreased the toughness from 4 to 3. Lies. That's just classic, isn't it? It's classic multinational corporation lying. Right to my face. Lying to my face. Alright, so it's now a 2 mana 0/3. And if you complete a dungeon, it's a 3/3 flyer. Still seems shit. Like, am I crazy? That's still bad, right? Like, 3/3 flyer is not really a payoff for venturing. How many times you need to venture to complete a dungeon? I guess you do get to venture once with himself, so maybe not, but it's minimum 4, right, to complete a dungeon? You venture 4 times, you've got a 3/3 flyer. Maybe, but it's just so unlikely, man. Dungeon Descent. Rules adjustment, decreased cost. Removed enters the battlefield tapped, thank God. Costs 1 to activate from 4. Untapped land, 1 and a tap. Tap an untapped legendary creature you control. Venture. Dude, it's still fucking terrible. How bad was this card before? It was tapped, and it was 4 and a tap, and tap a dude. Unreal. This plus Magda though is pretty pog. I honestly, I can't believe how shit this was before. It still seems like really bad. Tap an untapped legendary creature. That's just too hard, man. Okay, Eliwick Tumblestrom. Ultimate is now 6. I mean, that is pretty serious. 4 loyalty. Ultimate at 6, and your ultimate is creatures get +2/+2 for each dungeon completed, trample and haste. I don't know, guys. Could be decent. Don't sleep on 2 turns to ult. Since when walker ults have a meaning? Well, never, because you can't ult them, but you can ult her. Sometimes. Anyway, next. Fate's Reversal. Costs black from 1 black. Return 1 target creature card from graveyard to hand, venture. I mean, that's just awful. Find a Path. Rules adjustment now adds 2 mana of any 1 colour from adding GG. No more GGs. When it enters the battlefield, venture into the dungeon. Enchanted land has add 2 mana of any colour. Okay, this thing's still terrible. Puppet Razor. Buffed, by the way. I already thought this card was really good. 3/4 from 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, seek a creature card with mana value equal to the mana value of that card +1. That card perpetually gains menace. It's now a 3/4, it was a 3/3. Okay. Precipitous Drop is now 1 and a black from 2 and a black. -2, -2, -5, -5 if you've completed a dungeon. Dude, this thing needs to cost 1 mana, right? This thing just sucks. It needs to cost 1. There's already enchantment auras that are 1 mana that do -2, -2, and then this one, at least you get a fucking payoff for it. Triumphant Adventure is now a 2/1 first strike Death Toucher. I mean, that's relevant, right? 2/1 first strike Death Touch. Like, there's a big difference between 1 damage and 2 damage. Because now, you can't really kill this by blocking anymore. It's got to be removal spell. At least, when it's only a 1/1, you can double block it, right? But not anymore. Now it's you're a triple block Andy, you lose 2 of your creatures. That's a good buff. That is a buff to playable levels. Some of these other buffs are still a little bit scared, in my opinion. This is now a good card. Sadly, it's going to still be in a bad deck though, Venture Pyoba. Card adjustments. So divide by 0. Only learns if it targets a spell or permanent with mana value 4 or less. What? So it's been nerfed in the mirror only. I guess there's Goldspan and Adult Gold Dragon. There's a few 5 mana cards that see play that are not in the mirror decks. It's a shit card though. It is a shit card though. But it's annoying, right? Which is a perfectly valid reason to... I mean, that is a fine nerf, to be honest. I don't think divide by 0 even needed to be nerfed, to be honest. So that pretty much does nothing, which is fine. We're aiming to promote higher mana value cards in Alchemy. Divide by 0 was stronger as it targeted more expensive cards, and this change will evenly distribute its power. Okay, whatever, it's fine. Fearsome Whelp rules adjustment. Now triggers on upkeep from end step and gains haste. Oh, I mean, dragons are just dead now. You can't touch the whelp. If you want dragons to be a deck, you have to leave the whelp. You can touch the payoff dragons, but you've got to leave the whelp. You can't play dragons without... Dragons don't have any cards that cost 1, 2, and 3 mana except the fucking whelp, so you've got to leave the whelp. Yeah, I guess there might be an Nadar buff. Possibly, because Nadar is a venture card, so maybe the deck will get a little bit better that way. Okay. I think that is an extremely heavy nerf, and to the point where dragons, if there are no other buffs to dragons, dragons are surely unplayable now. We are looking to make the explosive starts with Fearsome Whelp easier to interact with. Changing the trigger from end step to upkeep will give decks an additional turn to profitably interact with Fearsome Whelp. Giving Fearsome Whelp haste is a small way to compensate and make it more relevant in combat. Like, the dragons will still be okay in the creature matchups, but you've got no shot against Gandalf now. They get to draw another card to remove your whelp. Hullbreaker Horror. Remove this spell can't be countered. Oh my god, they're just buffing cards and nerfing cards for the blue mirrors. What the fuck is this? What is this? I mean, it's a small nerf, is fine. I would rather a larger nerf, but removing this spell can't be countered will make Hullbreaker Horror easier to interact with in both control mirrors and other blue decks. Since blue control decks also have access to Malevolent Hermit and Liar, Disciple of the Drowned, we felt removing the third instance of can't be countered will make the mirror more fun. This change will also make anti-aggro control more viable, as cards like Disdainful Stroke can more reliably interact with threats in the pure control decks. Bruv. I'm gonna blow. What do you mean? Make anti-aggro control more viable? They've got fucking Purge, man. They've got 3 mana, exile literally every other card in the game. Inquisitor Captain. Right, what's the captain change gonna be? The captain change is gonna be cannot be cast if opponent has an island. If opponent places an island, this card is discarded from your hand. Added if you cast it and to the enters the battlefield ability. Okay, so no more Glasspool Mimic, no more bouncies. So you can't fetch Mimic and like Ephemera, Yori and shit. That's fine, whatever. Honestly, I thought it would have got nerfed to more than that, but it's still absolutely insane if you're just playing it fairly. We're making it more difficult to overwhelm the board with Inquisitor Captain. The interactions with cards such as Mimic and Soul Herder made it too difficult for creature-based decks to attack advantageously without relying on flying or forcing them to ignore combat altogether. Okay. Liar, Disciple of the Drowned. What's it going to be, chat? What's it going to be? Is Alchemy saved? Added during your turn to the flashback ability. As long as it's your turn, each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. See, this is what I mean, right? Like, it's just absolutely unplayable now, right? Other blue control decks will rise? Probably. I'm not sure that Hullbreaker Horror is even that good, though, without the Liar spells available. Am I happy? I would like to never play against Liar again. I think I will play against Liar still sometimes, but maybe it's a good nerf. I mean, I was saying earlier that I don't think you can... I don't know how you can nerf Liar to make it still playable. That seems like a good starting point to try, though, at least. Maybe it is still playable, but I would highly doubt it. At this point, it's just... that now it's just another 5-mana creature that gets value, right? And we all know that nobody plays any of those. So I would be extremely surprised if Liar still makes the cut. We're aiming to make Liar, Disciple the Drowned less effective when combined with Fading Hope and Divide by Zero. The 2 bounce spells are very effective at protecting Liar and controlling creatures. This change will help players remove Liar, favourably attack, and interact with the opponent's graveyard on their turn. Cool. It's worth a try. I think that's a good nerf. I think it will still be too much of a nerf and Liar will be unplayable. But again, as I said earlier, I don't know how you can possibly nerf him while still making him playable. That's about as good of a first attempt as you could make, in my opinion. Sanguine Brushstroke. Removed life gain from sacking the blood token. What? Okay, that is a really big nerf. A good nerf? But I don't know, did Brushstroke need to be nerfed? Was Brushstroke too good for the format? I'm not sure. Or was... No, but you're saying yes though, guys, right? That there has to be some good cards, right? There will always be some good cards. Was Brushstroke in the pile of good cards, the ones that you can actually put into your deck, or was it in the pile of, like, Liars and Whelps? I don't think Brushstroke is in the Liar and Whelp pile. Not in my opinion. I think Brushstroke was just one of the 50 good cards in Alchemy that you can put into your deck. It's not an enormous nerf, but it is a nerf to a card. I'm not sure it needed one, but I'm willing to let it slide. I mean, you've got like Whelp, Liar, Captain, Tyrant. I don't think Brushstroke was in that pile. But to be fair, I mean, if it wasn't, it's not far off, so it's fine. We are specifically targeting how Sanguine Brushstroke matches up against aggressive strategies. We opted to change Brushstroke instead of Massacre to minimise the impact to Historic and to have less of the deck's power concentrated in a single card. Removing the life gain from the enchantment will allow aggressive decks to focus their answers on the Conjured Blood Artist and overall increase their chances of pushing through lethal damage. Town Razor Tyrant. Added non-basic as a targeting restriction. I mean, this is still the best card in the format. Easy. Easy. No change. I mean, that is a change. But this is what I mean, guys. This is what the nerfs should be, right? You don't want to... The worst thing that you can do is over-nerf it to the point where it can't be played anymore. That is not the intention of nerfs. The intention of nerfs is to make it less strong, but still playable. Which is what this is. It's still great, which is good. Next. We're aiming to promote more monocolour decks in Alchemy and provide a few opportunities to play around the dragon's ability. Multicolour decks can include more basic lands to reduce their chances of being denied a specific colour of mana and play around turn 3 Town Razor Tyrant. Card legality. Teferi Time Raveler. Balance adjustments, now legal in Historic. Teferi Time Raveler costs 4 from 3, now has 5 starting loyalty from 4, and the static ability becomes you cannot play this card because it sucks. Your opponent can't cast spells during your turn. Wait, isn't that what it was already? 4 mana Teferi 3. Seems kind of trash. No? Still very good. Okay, I mean, it's not awful. Maybe trash is the wrong word, but I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if people play this. Like, if this was a new card, if this was a Kamigawa Planeswalker, would we think this is good? And it was called something like Feteri. If it was called Feteri Rime Traveler, would we say this is good? We might do, yeah. Not gonna lie. Maybe we would say it's good. Fat Terry. Yep. Fat Terry the Rime Traveler. Yeah, maybe it's good, man. I'm interested to try it, though. Teferi is back, baby. We're aiming to move the Fairy Time Raveler away from a generically strong card to a specialised anti-control tool. Increasing the mana cost will make the fairy less effective at controlling the board, and the new static won't incidentally stop cards like Finale of Promise and Dreadhorde Arcanist from working. Very interesting. How many months until we get Field of the Dead in its legendary version unbanned in Historic? The day is coming, dude. That time is coming. Alright, what do we think, chat? What do we think? So, I cannot see a world where Dungeon is good. It still looks terrible. The divide by zero nerf is insulting. Fearsome Whelp I think was the wrong target, but it's whatever, it's fine. The Hullbreaker Horror nerf is accompanied by the Liar nerf, so to be honest, I mean, Hullbreaker Horror is kind of a shitty card. Let's be honest. It's actually pretty bad. It's good if you have unlimited spells, which Liar gives you. But if you don't have unlimited spells, it's not very good. So, despite the fact that Horror is not getting significantly nerfed, I think the Liar nerf is significant and will in turn significantly nerf the Horror. So, what is your plan now if you're a Gandalf in Alchemy? So you've still got Purge. Purge didn't get touched. You've still got like really good creature removal. But how do you win? How do you win? Gandalf doesn't have a win plan, never did. No, it does though. Like the days of remove everything, draw some cards, remove everything, draw some cards, remove everything, draw some cards. Those days are long gone. They will never be back. Control decks are now remove things, draw some cards, remove things, play an unbeatable threat. Do we have any unbeatable threats? Because if there's no unbeatable threats, then there's no control decks. It's as simple as that. Key and Discover didn't get nerfed. Well, you've got to remember that a lot of these cards like Key and Discover and stuff are... they play better than they are because of Liar and Horror, right? So Liar and Horror will indirectly nerf all of these other ones too. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure how Gandalf wins. Ecuador. Ecuador.